Bienvenue à tous, merci de votre participation. Pour écouter notre session en français, veuillez cliquer en bas de votre écran sur l'onglet « Interprétation » et sélectionner le drapeau français. Merci.
On behalf of ICLEI Africa, the African Center for Cities, Our Future Cities, Surge Africa, and the Red Cross Crescent Climate Center, we are delighted to welcome you to the Rise Africa 2024 Action Festival. Rise Africa is a platform that brings together thinkers, doers, and enablers to inspire action for sustainable cities. This is our 4th edition of our Rise Africa Action Festival, which brings together insights, practices, and visions from across the continent under this year's theme of Solutions Only, Failures Also. This year's theme provokes us to change the way we view our cities and approach their development, particularly to promote a solutions orientation to our worldview. The festival invites you to embrace different ways of knowing, to seek ways to bridge science, policy, business, and arts in creative ways. It invites you to forge new partnerships, experiment with new concepts and ideas, and drive change in your homes and communities. This year's festival, we are running a social media storm to share how urbanization is happening in Africa, that cities can be centers of possibility, and how we can inspire action for sustainable African cities. Please share these for the days of the festival, including Africa Day, the 25th of May. As is tradition, we invite you to enter this session in a spirit of creativity.
Hello, my name is Gesha Aletta, and my poem is titled, How Can We Be Afraid of the Light? The hour before dawn rouses the birds. They sing their excitement for the light. We toss and turn beneath our covers. We choose sleeping rather than sight. Without resting, there can be no labor. We need the darkness for a season. When the time comes to turn the light on, we're beside ourselves with reasons. Why we can't turn off the beaten path? Why what it asks is maybe decades or centuries away? Why it's too great to bear the burden that change asks? Why the fire and the light are dangerous because of the trails they blaze? He said, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. We want change to seduce us boldly, but only with the lights off. How can we be afraid of the light? How can we hide from the glistening of tears? How can we abandon our efforts and failures? How can we be corralled by our fears? How can we be afraid of the light? How can we shy away from smiling with all our teeth? Why don't we bind our wounds with laughter's balm? How dare we bury our humanity beneath? There's a beating heart in every chest, and it's longing for a chance to run towards the finish line, whether it comes first or last. Hearts aren't swayed by competition to cease beating because of the chorus of other beating hearts. When did we become renegades towards this intuition? Perhaps if we stop trying to conquer, colonize, destroy, dominate, is where winning starts.
What an inspiring video and provocation. How can we be afraid of the light? It sets an inspiring tone for our session today. So welcome everyone to the Reimagining a Pollution-Free Atmosphere session, where we will be discussing solutions to ending open burning. I'm Joko Deguya, your session host, and I'm not alone. I'm joined by my colleague Zakia Atkins, who's also my co-host. Before we get started, I would just like to thank you all for joining the session today, and I'm excited to hear from you all as our session unfolds today. We do have a few guidelines which are aimed at ensuring that our session today runs smoothly, so I just want to quickly run through those. Firstly, in order to not disturb our presenters while they're speaking, could you please make sure that you are mute at all times? Please also use the chat to raise any technical issues that might come up. And please note that the session will be recorded and you will be able to view it after the session. It will be posted on the Rise Africa website. We are very active on social media and encourage you to engage using the hashtags provided in the chat. Zakia will be pasting those, and you can use those to post about either this session or any other sessions that you'll be attending during the Rise Africa Festival over the course of the next 3 days. And then lastly, we would love this session to be interactive. So please feel free to use the chat to ask any questions and to share any comments that come up. And furthermore, we have a raise hand function. So please use that to ask any questions to our speakers. Let's jump right into the session. Today, we'll be hearing from 4 speakers who are change makers in their respective rights, and they are all doing great work to address the major challenge of open burning of waste in Africa. And each of them is doing great work to raise awareness about the challenges associated with open burning and or implementing projects that are directly addressing open burning with environmental as well as waste management co-benefits. This is a challenge that spans different fields and sectors as well. So that's an important component to consider. And so I will briefly introduce our speakers, but they will dive into their intros and the work that they're doing once I call upon them to speak. Our first speaker, though, will be Desmond Alugnoa, who is the founder of Gaio, as well as a program lead for Gaia, Africa's Zero Waste Initiative. And he will be essentially setting the tone for our discussions today. We'll then jump into a panel-style discussion with Elizabeth Perem-Eremier, who is the CEO and founder of Zanafri. We are also joined by Aliwan Diaye, who is the thematic lead for climate and resilience at Practical Action West Africa, and Anderson Kabila, who is the program leader for energy and climate, as well as natural resources and ecosystems at the Stockholm Environment Institute African Center. And so we have convened these speakers because, interestingly, there are cool overlaps across all of us. Either we are all connected through an open burning grant as grant holders or as members of the multi-stakeholder partnership for open burning. And so the work that all these organizations and speakers are doing is very much on the beat and in tune with what is happening around the continent at the moment. And so in the spirit of the Rise Africa Action Festival theme, which is solutions only, failures also, they will be inspiring us through insights from their work. And so before I welcome our speakers, I would like to center us into the topic at hand with a thinking activity, which my co-host Zakia Adkins will take us through. So over to you, Zakia.
Thank you so much, Chukuru. I'm just currently pasting Mentimeter codes and links into the chat, so please have a look at those while I share my screen. Yeah. Can you all see my screen? Cool. I think we could just start out by everyone just please joining the link. So on your phone or in your web browser, please go to menti.com and type in the code on the screen if you can't see it. If you can't see it, it's 72713215. I've also pasted it in the chat. As you can see, some things are coming in already, some responses. I think I'll just wait a little bit more for people to join. The code for the chat, the code for the Mentimeter is 72713215. So the first question we have is, when does Africa aim to phase out open burning? We currently have 4 responses, which is good. I think we can just wait a bit more for everyone to send in the responses. Okay, we have, so far we have answers for 2024, and then we have one for 2040. Okay. I think I'm gonna give it a few more seconds before I reveal the actual answer. Okay, so We have 5 responses for 2040, and 2040 is the correct answer. So I'm pleasantly surprised that many of you have gotten the correct answer. And I'm definitely optimistic that we'll definitely reach this target by 2040. Yeah, I think we can go to the next question. So the next question is, what percentage of municipal solid waste is recycled in sub-Saharan Africa? Any wild guesses? Okay, we have 2 responses thus far. Okay. Let me give it a few more seconds for people to send the responses through. Okay, we have 6 responses thus far. Okay, so the correct answer for this one is 4%. 4% of municipal solid waste is recycled currently in sub-Saharan Africa, which definitely shows us that there's still a major opportunity for us to reuse, recycle, and let other streams of waste go back into the system. Yeah. So our next question is, what solutions have you seen to address open burning? So this is in the form of a word cloud. So please send your responses through. I think you'll also have 3 options or spaces to put your answers. We don't have any responses yet, but we'll wait until we have some. We have the use of incinerators as a solution that someone has seen to address open burning. We have a reduction of waste generation, black soldier fly technology. We also have making more of reuse. We have government budgets on waste. We have a biodigester as a solution to addressing open burning, enforcing policies, which is definitely a big one. Material recovery facilities, we have that as well. 3 Rs, yeah, and the circular economy also being one of the solutions that we are seeing. Okay, I think that is definitely lots of good answers. Thank you so much for this. I will be sharing back to Jukuru. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zakia, for taking us through this very interesting activity. I think it's raised or given us a lot to think about. These are very important reminders and questions that we should constantly be asking ourselves around the state of waste management on our continent. I think most of us very well understand that one of the primary drivers for open burning has been the lack of proper waste management infrastructure on the continent and approaches. And so what we've seen there is, number one, a call to understand when we hope we can achieve the reduction or elimination of open burning, which is by 2040. And as has been rightfully put in the comments, which I think is a very good reflection on other global goals and continental goals that that many of our countries are committed to, such as the Sustainable Development Goals. While we would want for this challenge to be resolved by 2040, perhaps setting a goal like 2024 might be better, because actually that puts us in a position to make sure that if we miss the mark now, we get it by 2040. And just an interesting fact that I recently found out, there was only one country in the world that actually met its MDG goals in at the end of that period before the SDGs were initiated and put in place. So that gives us perspective around the challenge and the heavy work that needs to get done in order to reach such a lofty goal. But from what we're going to hear today, you will understand that actually it might not be impossible to reach this goal of eliminating open burning by 2040, because we do have wonderful champions and actors around the continent that are doing great work to addressing this problem. And that's the purpose of our session today, is to hear from all these speakers around the work that they're doing and hopefully get inspired to take action or to continue doing what it is that we are doing to address this problem. And so at this point, I would like to call on our first speaker, who is Desmond Alignoa, to help us understand why we need to urgently address this problem and to learn from some of the insights that he has gathered from the work that he is doing, particularly giving us a perspective from youth and the critical role that they play in addressing this challenge. So over to you, Desmond, to introduce yourself and give us insight into your work.
Thank you, Jukudu. All right, permit me to make my presentation. And do draw my attention if at any point you are not hearing me or you are not seeing the presentation. It's nice to be here to join with everyone. And I just saw somebody saying that the question in the activity set the proper pace for us to have this webinar, which I totally agree, because we've seen a target. When do we intend to actually put an end to open burning? We've seen also what we are supposed to do if that target is supposed to be met. And I want to continue in that manner. So Green Africa Youth Organization, which is my organization, we were formed about a few years ago, 2014, and our target has always been to also champion environmental solutions, especially working with young people and communities, in which open waste burning, control of open waste burning is a part of that. We focus in about 3 thematic areas, which is climate change, circular economy, disaster risk reduction, and recently a 4th aspect, which came as a result of the discovery that even though young people
Sorry, Desmond, we have lost you. I don't know if you can still hear us. Desmond is actually facing a few challenges right now with the internet, but we can see that he is back. Desmond, if you're able to carry on, perhaps what I could suggest is maybe that you can go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Are you? Okay. Yeah, I hope I am on the right slide where I was.
Desmond, could I rather suggest that Zakia shares your presentation on your behalf? That way it would help with your bandwidth.
Yes, that will be fine. That will be fine.
Awesome, Zakia, do you mind sharing?
I'll stop sharing. We are having some really bad rainfall in Accra at the moment, so the internet is really bad.
Okay, Desmond.
All right, thank you. So as I was saying, you can go to the 3rd slide. We focus on these 3 thematic areas, which is the climate change. On climate change, we mainly focus on adaptation. We focus on parts of mitigation as well, but also building youth leadership for climate policy conversations. Because we realize that without being in the room, without being able to actually champion the talks, it's becoming difficult to have policy enforcement or inclusive policies that are supporting the communities that are actually at the front line of the work that we are doing. Circular economy. I saw that a couple of people are mentioning material recovery facility as a solution to open burning, which is one of our strong pillars, because we also establish material recovery facilities in different cities in Africa, in multiple countries in Africa, mainly serving as a station where waste can be innovated, waste can be collected and stored and sold or recycled. And we are doing this through movement building, empowering the informal sector, and bringing together different stakeholders who are working, whether formal or informal companies that are working along the waste management value chain, because most of the problems they faced before we came in was the working in silos and having a lot of gaps, not sharing collection strategies, and that didn't help, coupled with a lot of city lack of policy enforcement to support or sustainable, suitable environment to support such operations. Then on the third pillar, it's also targeting mainly knowledge and creation and awareness to enable people to understand how to act, how to behave, how to support in managing disasters and avoiding disasters. One reason why we started this was that in 2013 in Ghana, there was actually a heavy storm which caused a lot of flooding. And unfortunately, there was a fire outbreak because a fuel station exploded. And that fire outbreak was disastrous. A lot of lives were lost. So we realized that a lot of the drainages were choked with waste in general, organics, plastics, electronic metals. And so we actually started this to counter that. How do we spread the knowledge and ensure that everyone receive this as part of their responsibility and to play along? The last part that I told you that we started recent years is regranting for youth-led organizations, because also realize that not only are a lot of young people leading the initiatives and having the knowledge to be equal stakeholders in solving the problem, but they are actually also scaling projects across the globe. But then these same young people, by virtue of being young, are not seen as people who can manage funding at certain volumes. And so they do not have direct access to significant funding for the solution. And so we serve as that broker that then support these young people by soliciting from philanthropic groups and re-granting to some of those young people. Please, let's go to the next slide. So that is that about Gaio, but then addressing the questions that I was supposed to address in this particular presentation, one of that was, what's the impact of the efforts that we have been channeling? And I already mentioned briefly some of the work that we are doing, including working with the informal sector. One of such work is that we've been able to work with 7 municipalities in Ghana, integrating over 700 informal waste pickers. Now, informal waste pickers are mostly those who are picking on the street and working at the dump site. At the beginning, they worked in silos, of course, without having any ties with government. You are sometimes criminalized, but they are one of the groups that are salvaging significant amount of waste and making sure that our landfills are having longer lifespan. And so we thought that integrating them, talking to the government and ensuring that government work with them through this integration is the only way possible to actually have a sustainable solution. The other thing is also the amount of waste we've been diverting from landfills, because now we've integrated the formal and informal sector, including the Bola Taxi Association. These are like the transport associations that are transporting waste. We have been able to use these people to force the language around source segregation, the language around return systems, how to get money from your waste and what have you. And because of that, they've been able to collect clean waste from the various cities that we are operating and these clean waste are useful, and so they do not end up at the landfill. They end up either at the composting facilities, where we are composting and producing about 2,000 kilos of compost every month, or they end up at the recycling plant or built at the buyback centers and sold to the companies that are doing recycling. Because of that, we decided to build the Zero Waste Accra model. So a zero waste model that is actually replicable, whether in Accra or in other cities. It's focusing mainly on what's the composition of waste that you have in the city, what are the local dynamics in terms of policy support, and what are the main carriers of this model, like who is the conveyor belt that can actually implement it, vis-a-vis the funding support or streams that you can use to support this. That we're talking about the young people, we're talking about the informal sector, you're talking about the police and the various enforcement bodies that are supporting this. And then we decided to now put this model in a structure that can be used by anybody, any entrepreneur who wants to make money from managing waste. And that's where we produce a Zero Waste Accra. So along all this chain, capacity building for both municipal officials and the informal waste workers has been very paramount. But even before that, waste assessment brand audits was crucial to be able to understand the composition that we did. And that we had to achieve that through a lot of cleanup exercises and conducting those exercises together with the municipalities and the communities. And that leads us to the next slide, please. Yeah. So why do we have to prioritize ending open waste burning? That's basically just a saying, because everybody knows that open waste burning, you putting aside the health aspect of it, just the mere fact that visibility is impaired in the various cities like Accra, cities like Nairobi, when there's continuous, as more waste are dumping at the dump site or the waste, the landfill, they have to keep burning in order to make space. And because they keep burning, there is now a lot of smoke in the city. And that smoke, apart from the furans and the toxins that are inside it, causing the health, what the normal person can see is that visibility is impaired. And apart from the visibility is impaired, you can actually smell it in the air that you are breathing. So before it will even cause you sickness, it's already causing you a lot of problems in terms of the smell that you are facing, in terms of how much it can delay you or not even allow you to go to work on that day, and what have you. So the reasons for acting on waste burning is actually paramount. Please, let's go to the next slide. Yeah, and solutions to eliminate the open waste burning. Throughout our model, as you can see here, that's actually one of the waste picker leaders who is holding these carbon papers with different inscriptions. And under that, the picture under that is a group of people composting at our material recovery facility in Accra. The solutions exist in building the movement. The solutions exist in actually creating a business model out of this, because the more people are creating the waste without thinking about the impact it has on the environment and the impact it has on them and the economic value of converting it into money, they do not really reflect much about their actions. And so we have to make sure that people understand and people attend some of the workshops that we conduct, make it accessible, and help those people to then come up with their ideas that they can go and even implement, because as one organization, there's not so much that you can do. Establishing local material recovery facilities, as I mentioned in my intro, is very key, because without the material recovery facilities, it's also very difficult for the communities to even have space to drop their waste. It's difficult for the waste management companies or the recycling companies to know where to pick up waste. And so the model has to be really dependent on having the space where you can drop off. We call some of them buyback centers, the smaller ones, and then the material recovery facilities are the places where actually you get there and you see composting happening. You get there and you see a lot of baling happening for the plastics and scrap dealers and what have you. So those spaces, if provided, especially by the municipal assemblies, could really catalyze the solutions that are already in existence. And then advocating for policy enforcement, of course. Gayo has been part of the INC processes, supporting the government of Ghana to negotiate the INC process, and of course also the climate negotiations. Because if you don't find a way to stream and mainstream these things into the conversation, it becomes difficult to act on it without policies backing it. And the important reason why we want the communities and the young people to be there is because they are like directly confronted by the problem. So sustainable project in sustainable community project, which is now in Accra, Zero Waste Accra. We are doing it in, we started it in 2021, and now we scaled it to different cities in the country since that 2021. I think later on they will share the materials with all the participants to see. The next one, the role of youth in addressing open burning. That cannot be overemphasized, because young people, apart from the fact that they are directly facing the problem and understand it better because they live with the problem, the other thing is the level of energy and passion to actually find themselves useful, to actually find themselves as part of a solution and not part of the problem. And because of that, they are even having the reach. They are able to utilize other platforms and reach a greater audience than certain other age groups. And so young people are very crucial to do this. And then holding government accountable. Young people are very good at campaigns that actually can catch global attention. Let's talk of climate space, the Greta Thunberg effect, and how that has gone wild since even during COVID. All right, that comes to the end of my slides, and I hope that we have time for questions and answers. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Desmond, for the lovely insights that you've given. As Desmond has said, if you have any questions to him, please ask them into the chat. And before I ask any of my questions, I think let's start with one that's come in from Piotr, which is why to use the phrase eliminating open waste burning and not simply eliminating waste burning in whatever form. So skipping the word open to use skipping the word open, because using open brings those confusions around closed burning might actually be okay. And I think that goes back to his point around incineration and closed incineration. Is that something that you're able to respond to, Desmond?
Yes, sure. And I do agree with the person asking the question. I think it is context in the context that the open waste burning, the target of 2040 to end open waste burning and what have you. I think that came from the perspective of when they were talking about energy transition. A lot of African homes still rely on wood fuel to cook. And that was a factor, whether it is indoor or it is outdoor. Then the other thing was also because when you are talking about closing dump sites, closing landfills, at the moment, there's no conversation around closing landfills that does not talk about open waste burning, because the landfills are open and there is only this mechanism that is predominant, continuously burning the waste to make more space for more waste to be dumped there. And so open waste burning came in as by default because of the conversation. Now I'm saying that agree with the person asking the question, because actually we want to actually talk about waste burning, and that will include the cement kilns, that will include the incinerators, the so-called waste to energy that other global corporations are preaching to, especially African countries. But then I'm also sort of wondering, will that sort of also make it too much to bite at a time? Should we actually also just allow conversations like petrochem and waste to energy to take effect as a whole channel? Should we be able to separate the cement kiln and talk about how that is also tied directly to health and data from the health facilities? So I think that, yes, we should be dealing with waste burning as a whole and say, hey, no to waste burning, whether you are putting it in your room to burn it or you are putting it outside. But then when we are also trying to close landfills, the language will have to be very clear. And I guess that's where we ended up with this open waste ban.
Thank you so much, Desmond, for that insight. And it's really a quandary that we are in as a continent and as a globe, because this is a problem that goes beyond just the African continent. But yeah, those are critical questions. Do we start off small and see what we can achieve within a specific time period and have a set goal and kick that off, and then build off in the hopes that what we're doing right now with this goal being delimited to just open burning will help us already build in some co-benefits and resolutions that address all other forms of burning. And I think it ties quite well with the points that you were making around the approaches that you are taking as Gaio to addressing some of these challenges. You mentioned a range of solutions, from like zero waste approaches to circular economy and the likes. And so taking on, again, a holistic approach to addressing this challenge helps to address some of the questions that Piotr is also asking. But it is important for our wording, and it would be very interesting to hear what the thoughts are from everyone else in the room, as I believe a lot of us are working in the open burning space and trying to understand this problem and resolve these questions. I think I will leave my questions for the open discussion, just so that we have enough time to get into discussion with our other speakers. So thank you so much, Desmond, and we will carry on the discussion in the Q&A component. But now that you've given us this wonderful contextualization and historical context to why we're talking about open burning and having this target for 2040, I would like to shift us to a discussion with some actors who are doing work in the space. We have Elizabeth, Aliwan, and Anderson, who I had introduced earlier. So Elizabeth is working on an awareness raising project, and she's going to share something super cool with us. And then Aliwan is implementing a project in West Africa, which is also really amazing and cool. And we're super excited to hear about the developments of his work. I think on Aliwan's point, I would also just like to mention that last year at Rise Africa, we hosted another session similar to this one, where they presented some of the initial ideas that they were working on with regards to this project. So this is a wonderful follow-up to now hear what progress has taken place since those initial discussions. And then we are also joined by Anderson, who works in the policy space, and he's going to give us some perspectives from that point of view. So we will now hand over to Elizabeth, but before Elizabeth starts, she has a little video that we would like to play that will give you some insight into what she's going to speak about. So Zakia will play the video, and then we'll hand over to Elizabeth to introduce herself and share about her work.
You expose yourself to toxic fumes all day, every day. You know you are putting yourself at risk.
If I don't do this work, now who go come to am?
Wetin that boy dey talk? Nah, not saying just dey talk. Okay, if you don't do this work now, wetin we go dey jump?
You see am? Now what are they talk be this? As they cough like this, you like am? Now so now just the bomb does be for area anyhow. Now your punishment be that. Now they will punish you.
Aikin da ke gani shi ya danganta. Gwamnati ita dai wannan sana'a ce ba sana'a ba, saboda wani in ka wuce zai ce wannan ba sana'a ba ce.
Over to you, Elizabeth. What a video.
Okay. Thank you so much, Zakia and Jokoto, for having me here. It's really a pleasure. That short teaser that you guys watched is a trailer to a short film we did with the grant funding from the Royal Academy of Engineering and Engineering X. My name is Elizabeth Baron Eremie, and I am the founder of a company in Nigeria called Zenafre Limited. We are a media and tech-enabled company that is passionate about all things education.
Sorry to disrupt you, Elizabeth, but just a quick request, if you don't mind turning on your video, especially if your internet connection is stable, we would love to see you while you speak.
So that's the thing. I would risk turning it on, but if it starts glitching, please just let me know, because I think it's an Africa-wide problem, this bandwidth thing. So yeah, anyway, I was saying that we are a media and tech-enabled company that is passionate about all things education. So over the last few years, we have developed several educational apps, videos, and a range of other multimedia educational content targeted at African children and young adults. This particular project, we termed it Lafia. Lafia is a Hausa word that means well-being or to be well. It's a fictional docudrama that aims to create awareness of the health and environmental impacts of the open burning of solid waste in Nigeria. We focused on the FCT, that's Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, because that's where I live. And for a federal capital, it is a well-planned city, but human beings, I guess, will always be human beings, and waste is a part of the human experience, I guess. So it's the pollution in the air is getting more and more, has been getting more and more pronounced. So the problem of open waste burning has been getting worse. And there's a lot of people coming in to Abuja because they're looking for work and brighter future and all of that. So there's been a lot of emigration from other parts of the country into Abuja, and that has, of course, generated more waste. So we chose this format for awareness creation because our grant was aimed at creating awareness. So we chose this format because we did an initial assessment before we applied for the grant to properly understand the situation at hand, so that we'll be sure to engineer a solution that will have real impact. We found out that most people didn't even know that the smoke and the fumes from the open burning of solid waste have any adverse or long-lasting effects on human health, animal health, environmental health, and the global ecosystem at large. So we intended to bring this awareness first to the informal waste workers who, so okay, let me give a bit of context. In Abuja, waste is not sorted at source. Every home, there is no recycling practice set up in Nigeria currently. So waste from homes, everything goes into one bin. So plastic waste, e-waste, organic waste, everything goes into one bin in the kitchen. And then that is taken to there's a bigger bin outside. Most apartment buildings have like a bin section. So all the apartments just take the bins there. And then once or twice every week, for more affluent areas that can afford it, there are dump trucks, what are they called? bin trucks come around and empty the bins and take them to the landfill. But for the more densely populated areas and the outskirts of town, where most of the majority of the population lives, there is no formal waste disposal system. So we have to rely on informal waste workers. So that young man that you saw at the end of the trailer is one such informal waste worker. So what they do is they come once or twice a week, depending on the size of the apartment complex, and they empty out those bins into like this wheelbarrows, this double wheelbarrows. So they empty everything inside there. They take it to a dump site. Most of those dump sites have not been officially earmarked as dump sites. It's basically just empty land that has not been developed most times. So they just pick one at random and then they start dumping refuse there. So they go there, they empty out the bins, the rubbish that they have emptied from the bins, and then they sort. They do some kind of initial sorting. They take stuff that is still usable. So sometimes they might find shoes, belts, hats, some clothing that is still usable that people have thrown out. And then they leave the rest of it. Then there is a second wave of waste pickers. These ones don't go to the apartment complexes, they go to the landfills and those illegal dump sites. They pick up plastic bottles, glass, metal objects, and sometimes e-waste as well, because they have people that they sell them to make a little bit of
Sorry,
money.
Elizabeth, do you mind just pausing for a moment? We'd just like to sort out something with interpretation. Sorry, Ango, we can hear you in the English channel. Yeah, please let us know, interpreters, if you're experiencing any challenges, but we'll try to continue. Back to you, Elizabeth.
Okay. So yeah, that's what happens. There's the person the drama is centered around is the second type of informal waste worker. So he's there scavenger is not a very good term, but that's the closest I can think of. So they pick up what's usable and then what's left. Most times it's organic waste, things like baby diapers and all of that. All of that is then torched and burnt. When the place becomes too big or it starts overflowing, they burn it. Sometimes maybe the methane spontaneously combust and then it goes off. So there's always fumes coming out of those places, and there are a lot of them just dotted around the FCT. So we wanted to create awareness that most of the smoke and the fumes from burning those wastes actually do have adverse effects on human health and the environment at large. So and film is a large part of Nigeria. It's a lot. Most people consume content through YouTube or through watching films like that. So that's why we decided to go with a docudrama instead, to create this awareness and to let people know that you don't just burn waste indiscriminately. There are alternative ways of doing things. So when we finished working on the film, we had some showings in my local community where I stay. There is a waste recycling place. It's not, I won't call it a plant. It's very informal, but it's close to where I live. The waste workers take the plastic and the cardboard boxes and paper and all of that there, and they pack them, compact them down, and then there are trucks that come every once in a while, buy those, and then take them to the more proper recycling places where they are recycled into new cartons or cardboard boxes, as they're called, and other stuff. So we had a few showings in my local community and environs, and invited the waste workers that we talked to while we were working on the film. And we interviewed them before we showed them the film and after we showed them the film. So before we showed them the film, we asked them again that they asked them to ascertain whether they know that there are any adverse effects to the open burning of solid waste. And most of them did not know that. All they knew was that, yeah, if you inhale the smoke every once in a while, you get a cough and a sore throat, you go to the chemist, or you drink some ginger and honey tea and you feel better. So then we showed them the film, and in the film, we talked to a government official. We also talked to a medical doctor who actually explained the list of ailments, right from bronchitis and asthma to cancer. All of this caused by inhaling toxic fumes that are generated by the open burning of waste. And after the film, we interviewed all of them, and most of them expressed shock that they didn't know that all of that were health effects that could be gotten from being exposed to those fumes. And it's difficult for them to know. I don't blame them not knowing, because a lot of them are transient workers. So they come into the capital hoping for a job. They don't get a job. They end up doing this, and then they do it for a few months, maybe a year, and then realize that my life was actually better in my village. So they go back home. So there is no way of tracking. Okay.
Sorry, Elizabeth, please go ahead.
No problem. So there is no way of tracking if somebody who was consistently exposed to this actually got sick over time, or actually succumbed to some kind of ailment that has a direct link to. But then the doctor we also interviewed said that she had a case of a woman, an old woman, a 65-year-old, I think she said, who came in with stage 4 lung cancer, and she didn't have a family history of smoking. She had never been exposed to cigarette smoke in her life. So the only thing that it could track was that where she lived was very industrialized, and there was always a lot of toxic smoke and toxic fumes in the air. So that was the likeliest cause they could think of for her coming in with that. And she did mention that there were a lot more of those cases coming into her hospital. She's seen a lot more of those cases, people who don't have any history of lung cancer coming in with advanced cases of lung cancer, simply because they have been exposed to toxic fumes wherever they live. So 100% of the people who watched the film said that they were now aware that there were health effects and environmental effects that result from the open burning of solid waste. And 80% said that they were willing to change their ways, they were willing to take action, or they were willing to go ahead and pass along the message to loved ones, family members, friends, and all of that. So we're optimistic that it might not be, it might not generate the kind of change we're hopeful for, but at least the message has been passed across. The message will be passed across. So the film is also on YouTube, where it can be seen by everyone. And please, if you feel led, just share the link to the link is in the chat. You can just share it to your community, your network, your friends and loved ones, so that people will be aware of what exposure to toxic fumes by open burning of solid waste. And this is so okay. Let me just
could I ask you to wrap up? Thank you.
It's a pilot project. We're optimistic that going forward, we'll be able to collaborate more with the various stakeholders we came into contact with during this initial phase, and we'll be able to come up with sustainable alternatives to open burning. Because as it stands now, the current government has some circular economy policies in place, but actual adoption and systems change, I suspect, might take a few years. So coming up with innovative solutions, though, to solve problems here has always been in the purview of organizations in the private sector. And it is heartening to see that there are quite a number of startups that are coming up and demonstrating some very, very creative and innovative ways of recycling waste, especially plastic waste. So we are optimistic that meaningful changes are underway. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. We will be going on to our next speaker in a moment, but I think, do you mind just helping us to answer this one question that's come through from the chat on whether you have encountered impacts on children from smoked homes?
Yes, so a number of those informal waste workers had families living with them near the landfills and the dump sites. And I did encounter one small child. She was about 3 years old, and she had I don't know if it was, she had something happen to her skin. It covered her skin from her scalp down to her toes. I felt so, I had to take her to the hospital. I paid for her treatment out of pocket. And the doctor did say that she's reacting to something, and they couldn't figure out why. But she was born there, and her mother probably was inhaling those fumes from when she was pregnant. And she said that the baby had always had that skin condition from when she was born. So the doctor said that she was reacting to something in her environment. It could be, but they couldn't figure out what it was she was reacting to, because she had elder siblings who were eating the same food she was eating, who were using the same local soap and cosmetic body butter things that they use. So the likeliest thing they could think of was maybe her mother was exposed to something while she was pregnant, and that was why she came out with that adverse skin reaction. So yeah, that's a direct relation, I think. That's the closest, that's the clearest I can think of. We did see some other children. Most of the children we came across in those places always had runny nose, or they were walking around in the dump sites barefoot. All of them were not in school, obviously. Some of them were being groomed to become waste pickers. So that is also an adverse effect. It's not a health effect, but it is still in their childhood. So it's yeah, that's
That's very important. It's an additional reason for why we should prioritize addressing this issue, and doing so quite quickly. We cannot be harming the same people who will be taking care of this planet long after we have left it. So thank you so much, Elizabeth. More questions will be coming right after, but I think we'd like to take a moment to hear from our other speakers as well. Aliwan, could I call on you to just share about the work that you're doing, to briefly introduce yourself, and then tell us an update on the work that's taking place with practical action. Over to you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you again, Yokudu and Zakia, for this opportunity. As you mentioned, Yokudu, last year, we had the opportunity to be part of a session where it was mainly to present the project and some of the main challenges and the component also that we consider. So I will share my screen, and yeah, let me know if it's fine also on your side.
We can see it perfectly.
Okay, that's great. So this event is definitely a good opportunity for us to monitor our project, to see also the progress that we are doing. I will start to present this project about improving human health and livelihood through reducing open burning waste in Senegal. First, to introduce myself, my name is Aliun Jai. I'm the Climate and Resilience Lead for Practical Action, West Africa. So for this project, the consortium is composed by 3 organizations. Practical Action, which is an internal development organization working in particular with the vulnerable communities that are facing complex challenges like climate change, by focusing on some practical innovation that are really in line with the need of the communities we are working with. Sonaget, which is the national company in charge of waste management, previously known as UCG in Senegal, and École Polytechnique Thiès, which is one of a higher education institute who has been training a professional around various fields in engineering for over 50 years in Senegal. So for this project, the main objective around reducing the health and environmental impacts of open burning waste in Senegal So it's a 2 years project that is funded by Royal Academy of Engineering and Lloyd Register Foundation. For this project, we consider mainly 4 components around waste prevention and reduction, health and safety, waste recovery, but also last one around the scaling up of good practices. In terms of our area of intervention, we are working mainly in 2 cities. So our capital city, Dakar, and Thiès, and in each city is the main landfill. So in terms of the solutions that we consider on this project about the open burning of waste, first of all, what we first started was really to conduct a diagnostic study on waste and health impact. I think with the previous presentation from Elizabeth, she really highlighted also sometimes this lack of knowledge from informal waste speakers and also the communities about the impact on health of open burning. So we consider in the very beginning to have a sort of a participatory action research where we consider various tools to really improve our understanding regarding the issue of open burning. We use various tools to understand the main contributing factors, to also highlight some of the most events that happen in our area of intervention in terms of open burning, to also have a better understanding about community dynamics by considering some aspect around gender and inclusion aspect, but also consider the main stakeholders that are involved in the landfill and identify risk and mitigation strategies. So it was really important for us to have a better understanding about the issue, but also get the perspectives from the community. So following that, we moved in particular to organizing some workshop, and the main purpose of this workshop was to continue to raise awareness about the danger of open burning and the impact on health and the environment, but also raise awareness in terms of waste reduction for the communities and some good practices that we can share also with them. And we conducted also this workshop really to hear also from the communities and work with them around some alternative solutions that we can consider, and also in terms of recovery options. So it was really interesting to have this exchange with them. And for this workshop, I wanted to point out that we bring together a representative from the communities, but also informal waste speakers, and as well as representative from the municipality, but because it was really important also in terms of sustainability to really make sure to bring them in this kind of event, and also to have their commitment around it. So we organized this workshop in our area of intervention in Dakar and in Thiès. And as I mentioned, it was really a good opportunity to exchange with them with some alternative solution and some good practices. Sorry. And just to focus a little bit around some waste recovery aspect with the example of biogas. So with our partner, in particular École Polytechnique Thiès, we consider this approach to first start with identifying some ways that are really suitable in terms of biogas production. So we are first considering the laboratory scale, and after the idea will be to confirm the first results in terms of scaling up to move towards a pilot stage. But along all this process, it will be important for us to generate knowledge around this value chain in terms of waste to biogas conversion. So you will see in the next slide, in particular, in terms of regarding the biogas with a biodigestor from the École Polytechnique Chess, and the training also that we organized with some representatives from the communities, the exchange also that we had with them, and also bringing also the waste speakers. And we really have a strong interest from them to really know more about this approach in terms of alternative solution, and to have the opportunity to be trained also as well. So it's really also the idea in terms of follow-up to start these activities where we'll consider various groups that will be also trained in terms of the usage regarding the biogas, and also what we can also get in terms of products that will support some activities like cooking, lighting, but also really considering some markets that we can identify regarding the biogas, but also its byproducts. Another aspect also that I wanted to mention is really related to the early warning system components that we consider as part of our project, with the idea really to be able to monitor the quality, the air quality. So I am just showing you a protocol that we are working on with École Polytechnique Chess, because the idea for us will be to move forward by implementing these activities in our area of intervention in the dump site. So first, we really started by considering the choice of sensor to make sure so that we will take into account various cases from oxide carbon, sulfur, nitrogen, and methane also as well. And also a strategy to make sure that we will put the sensor in an appropriate also location. And for that also we are collaborating with our national company, charge of waste management, Sonaget. And with also the idea with this early warning system activities to really be able to have some data around the air quality that we will be able to disseminate to the main stakeholders. For instance, for this activity, at the moment, there are some ongoing conversation with organizations like the Air Quality Management Center in Senegal, but also the Stockholm Environment Institute, with the idea to be able to receive also some additional sensors that we will be able to establish in our area of intervention. And then the end with this process in terms of data collection and analysis, being sure also to share it with relevant stakeholders to allow that to inform some measures and policies to put in place. So it was in summary the presentation that I wanted to do regarding our project with the main activities. So I remain available for any questions and follow-up during the discussions that we will have on the panel. So over to you, Jokudu, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Aliwan. There's a lot in there that I have questions to ask about, but super interesting work as well. I will save my questions for after we've heard from Anderson. So Anderson, could we call on you to quickly introduce yourself and just share with us about the work that you're doing with SEI?
Yes, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. So my name is Anderson Kebila. I am the program leader for energy and climate change at the Stockholm Environment Institute based here in Nairobi, Kenya. So just a few words about the Stockholm Environment Institute. We are an independent international research institution that undertakes applied research on a wide range of issues, covering environment and development. And our key mission to achieve, our research is actually to support decision making and induce change. And by this, we enact this by providing knowledge that bridge science, policy, and practice in the field of environment and development. So we actually headquartered in Sweden with 8 offices across the globe. And one of our key priority areas in our strategy is actually developing effective bioeconomy strategies and embedding them in national and regional policy and planning. I would just like to highlight some of the key projects that we've undertaken, that relates to our priority of change on bioeconomy. The first project, we actually, with other partners, developed a bioeconomy strategy for East Africa that has been completed, and we are now, looking at how to domesticate that policies to all the countries in the East African community. So we are now helping, countries, to develop their own national bioeconomy strategy after, finalizing that East Africa bioeconomy strategy. Then the second project, which we have done, was a scoping study on plastic waste management and recycling in Mombasa, Kenya. So what we did was actually to map out, the key value chain actors in Mombasa, including, the waste pickers, community groups that collect plastic waste either from households, commercial institutions, and other areas. And they collect them and then sell those plastics to recyclers, who now, shred those plastics and then shred them into flakes or pellets that are later on ground into finer particles that are used for the manufacture of plastic containers, water tanks, polythene sheets, as well as floor tiling. So those are some of the key, products that are being, developed from recycled plastics. Another project that we are currently engaging with, partnering with the World Vision, is termed the integrated management of natural resources in the arid and semi-arid lands of Kenya. And a key component of this project is actually working with partners to actually design and commission household biodigesters that they use to transform agricultural and livestock waste into biogas and biofertilizers. So we've done this, for getting down to 4 years. We've distributed, so many of these biodigesters to households, and then, training them on how to use these biodigesters so that they can have the maximum value in terms of, biogas recovery, as well as organic fertilizers that could be used as well on their farms. And currently, we are also working hand in hand with the International Center for Insect Psychology and Ecology, ICIPE, in a project which is known as the BioInnovate project. So ICIPE, is providing training and capacity building on the use of the black soldier fly to recycle, household waste, organic waste, into high quality feed, that for animals, as well as fertilizer that could be used to improve on soil quality. So in that project, ECP has, in partnership with all the other partners in the consortium, they have trained quite a number of households, small CBOs in Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda, Tanzania, across East Africa, training them on how to effectively use black soldier flies to recycle food waste and other organic waste to animal feeds. So by so doing, we've actually been engaging in all of these projects from the research and knowledge based angle, and providing, the critical information and data that are needed to actually inform all the implementing partners in guiding, the development of the different interventions and programs. So I will end there for some of these key projects that we've done. And as highlighted by the previous speaker, we are actually, supporting, counties, across Africa in a project that is called the Consortium for Better Air Quality Data in Africa. And we're currently partnering with UNEP, and the goal is to actually deploy air quality sensors across the major cities in Africa to monitor, the air quality, providing data for local authorities to help them develop their air quality management policies and plans. And we are now moving on into start installing some of these sensors in the waste and dump sites to actually, monitor, the quality of air in those particular areas, so that decision makers at both the county and national levels can be able to have this data that will enable them, to start developing some of their policies and the plans and regulations that will actually try to improve on air quality of their local constituencies. So basically, those are some of the key projects that we've done, we are currently doing in terms of waste management and circularity, and how to actually prevent, waste from getting into landfills, as well as preventing open burning. So I'll end there and pass it on back to you, Jikodo. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anderson, but also Elizabeth, Aliwan, and Desmond for the inputs that you've given into the discussion. Right now, we're going to open up the discussion. Please feel free as the speakers to also ask each other questions, because there are quite a lot of overlaps around the work that each one of you is doing. We've heard wonderful insights. If I just look at some of the notes that I've been taking, a key point from the work that Elizabeth is doing is who will do this work. I'm sure you remember that snippet from the video that we played of a waste picker asking, well, who's going to do this work? It's work that many look down upon and do not see as quite valuable. So what are we doing to address those challenges? Right now from Anderson, we're hearing around some of the data work and the value of having policies that steer us in the right direction. From Aliwan, we're hearing around different solutions for doing so. We've heard around black soldier flies as solutions, biogas and waste to energy, but also most importantly, we're hearing around how our youth are getting drawn into these ideas. So I'm just going to go through a range of questions back to our speakers, and I would like to start with you, Anderson, just because it's fresh in my mind, and it's a point that you were touching on at the very end of your input around data. We often hear that data is considered a huge barrier to like evidence-based decision making and taking steps forward and doing work. And that last project, or rather the second last project that you spoke about, is very much speaking to that around doing the work of integration and commissioning, and also the project that you talked about around mapping these key value chains. Those are very important pieces of work that we need to be implementing. And just to throw in a nugget of where this question for me is coming from was, I was recently encouraged to think big, but start small, and to realize that starting small doesn't mean that your ambition is not big. It means you are setting the ground for doing the right type of work and getting the results that you need. So I wanted to ask you, in the policy space and the work that you're doing, how are you working towards evidence-based decision making? Yes, there's this project that you are that you referred to around like mapping and collecting data and tracking air quality and doing so in a better way. But are there any other ways in which you're doing this to strengthen the evidence base for our cities in Africa?
Thank you very much for that question, Jikodo. It's quite a good question. Yeah, so what we do is we have an approach that we call citizen science. So we actually engage, those that are actually affected the impact or affected by the issues on the ground, for example, in terms of waste management or air pollution. So we work with these citizens, to first of all define the problem with them. So we know exactly that's the issue that they actually face on the ground. And then after defining the problem, we now co-develop some of the interventions or solutions together with the end users of that knowledge, so that when it comes time to implementation, there's actually buy-in and ownership, because the solutions will co-develop with local knowledge as well as inputs from us in terms of the scientific knowledge. So once we've had that, then we now go back, analyze the data, come back and have a validation a session with those end users, so to validate the results as well as the solutions that we co-develop with them. And at that level, we now move on to the next step, whereby we also engage other policymakers, stakeholders like the policymakers, and those who are have this decision-making power, so they actually know the key challenges that the constituencies are facing, and that will now enable them to start having some very good information, evidence to actually inform policy and decision making. So that's the approach that we normally take, involving the key stakeholders. First of all, identifying the problems, developing the solutions, and then presenting the results to the policymakers, so they can able now to have the evidence that they need to develop their policies. And the case in point that we have in Nairobi, we now have the Air Quality Management Act, which of course was a very intense effort that we engage not only the constituencies, but also parliamentarians, because they're the one who have to enact all those policies and plans through the parliament. So by engaging the parliamentarians, educating them of the issues and providing the evidence and data, they now saw the value and the need to actually bring about this Air Quality Management Act, which of course was a very integrative and collaborative process with all the various stakeholders.
Thank you so much, Anderson. And just on that note around resolving problems and roadblocks that we experience, perhaps let's jump on to Aliwan. And do you mind sharing perhaps any lessons learned through the process of implementing your project that you would like to add on to, in addition to what you've already shared through your presentation?
Okay. Thank you, Diokudo, for these questions. Just also to point out that at the moment we are just starting the second year and last of the project. In the first year, it was also, as I presented, some aspect also around some studies that we conducted. But in terms also of lesson learned, I will say that it's really also in line with what perhaps Elizabeth also mentioned a little bit about this lack of awareness around this issue of open burning, and this lack of awareness also among the communities. And for us, I think it's really important to go beyond just providing information, but it's also important to engage them in some participatory action method, as I highlighted, for them to really have a better understanding about the health risk and also potential economic benefits of proper waste management. And another aspect also, in terms of lesson learned, was really related also to the lack of organization among the stakeholders. When I think about the informal waste pickers, but also community groups also as well. So for us, it's also really important to consider some training for these informal waste pickers to move towards a more formalized, to formalize their activities, and really try also to integrate them into the waste management system. So that will be really something also important to consider as a sort of aspect in terms of overcoming the difficulty or barriers that we notice. And the last point that I wanted to mention is, I think a lack also of initiative in terms of waste recovery. And during the presentation, I showed the example in terms of biogas that could be really interesting for communities to explore some low cost and adaptable technologies. And with our partner, École Polytechnique, yes, I think that's really something interesting. And during the workshop, we really have some great interest from the communities present there. So that's really something that we will explore in the coming activities. Over to you, Jacob.
We're looking forward to
Yeah.
hearing what's emerging from that next phase. But just from what you're presenting right now, I think I have a question that I'd like to pose to all the speakers, and you can respond in any order, but it touches on, again, the work that Desmond and Gaio are doing, which is basically to try and understand you all to some extent are engaging with either youth or women or vulnerable groups such as our waste pickers. I would like to understand, like, how do you get particularly youth excited about supporting the work that you're spearheading? How do you get them to be actively involved in the work that you're doing? Does anyone have really cool or interesting experiences that you could share with drawing on youth? In your workshops or in your projects, or even the challenges with getting youth actively involved in your project?
Yeah, I can throw some light on that. I think for youth, especially in sub-Saharan Africa in general, the rate of unemployment is quite high, especially those who have actually, those who have like a graduate degree. For a country, for example, a country like Kenya is relatively high. So what youth actually want is, a livelihood that will be some sort of income generating, provide income, for a living. So the key aspect here, not only for this, for what we do, but I believe that cuts across, across the board for all the other projects, is to demonstrate the value of waste. If people can see that they can make money from waste, then you now spur that momentum towards engaging not only the youth but also the vulnerable communities, and actually, see how they can now start, collecting that waste, aggregating them, separating them to avoid any contamination along the value chain. Then once that's done, then we now pass it on to the next actor in the value chain. That's the processors who can now take them, who can now buy those wastes and then process them into different value-added products. So I believe that's the message that we have to be trying to put out there to the youth, to start engaging them in this type of activity that many consider as not good enough for a graduate, for example, a master's degree graduate to be engaged in.
That's very important, Anderson, and it takes us back again to one super critical line that came out from Elizabeth's videos. Who will do this work? That is a pertinent question that we should be answering. But just to reflect on a point that was also put in the chat again by Piotr in relation to your presentation earlier, Anderson, it was great to hear that Black Soldier Fly has taken up, and actually Kenya being one of the areas in which this field is quite strong, with over 1,000 entrepreneurs getting into the space. So we see that transition, and what we're seeing is, again, it's not just a hunger for addressing the issue that we're facing, it's also a push to create livelihoods and jobs and economic opportunities for people, particularly our youth. Elizabeth, you would like to chime in, please go ahead.
Thank you, Jokode. So, like Anderson said, there is a lady I follow on LinkedIn. Her name is Adejoke Lasisi. Her enterprise is called Planet 3R. What she does, she takes we call it pure water here. I don't know. It's water that's been sealed in a sachet, and people buy it really cheaply. It's clean drinking water that's almost everyone can afford. So as a result, there is a lot of waste that has been generated because of this plastic bags that have been discarded. And before now, most of it used to be burned, but what she does, she has waste pickers who go around and gather these plastic bags for her. She cleans it up, she shreds it, and then she makes it into very lovely bags. She makes laptop bags, she makes school bags, she makes shopping bags. Stop that. She makes shopping bags. I'm sorry. My kids are back from school. She makes shopping bags. And I love it because she's a graduate. You know, I think she even has an MBA, but her passion was fashion design. So she took this initiative and she turned it into something really, really good. And I don't think being in the circular, somewhere in the circular economy or in the value chain of taking trash and turning it into cash should just be the purview of the uneducated. I think there is a lot of value that graduates and well-educated people can bring to that value chain. And it falls on us to take what research has discovered, what the engineers have built. It falls on us to take those teachings and those products and translate it to how it can be utilized by people who don't have access to this information and these resources and these networks. So I see us as the bridge, I think, to be able to link the people at the bottom of the value chain to the resources and the solutions that have been engineered, but that they are not aware of, so to speak. So yeah, I definitely would love to fit myself into the value chain at some point. I'm looking for, maybe I'll be in Kenya at some point to get some like really hands-on ways to utilize soldier flies to break down organic waste, for instance. The last time I was in Kenya, I was taken to a plant where they melt down rubber. I think it's rubber from tires. They melt it down and they make it into building tiles. And I was flabbergasted. I was like, wow, I did not know this was possible. So yeah, it's not just the purview of the uneducated, even the people, there is space in the value chain for everyone.
Oh, that's very true. When you're in Kenya, to also link up with Anderson. Yeah, and it's just what you said around waste being a part of the human experience. And so what you're saying is exactly answering that question, how we then make sure that there's a positive spin to it and we're embracing waste and keeping products and materials in circulation and giving them constant life. Once again, Aliwan, as Elizabeth was speaking, you were nodding. So I'm just wondering if you had a point that you wanted to add into the conversation before I move into some of the questions that have come through from the chat.
Just to double down about this aspect in terms of the engagement from the youth, I think as Anderson pointed out, it's really important here to have some support that we will get from the authorities in terms of subsidized incentives. So I think that's really something important, and considering some microfinance program to really facilitate loans for entrepreneurs regarding waste collection and processing businesses. I think that's really something that is important for the youth, and also in our case also in Senegal. As I mentioned, we really try also to have this engagement from the very beginning with the communities by really working with the key representatives from them, because previously beyond this project on waste management, we started on other activities around climate resilience. For instance, a project on flood resilience in our same area of intervention. So that really allows us also to build some strong links also with the communities, and really make sure also to have the commitment here from the very beginning. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very valid input, Aliwan. I would like to just call on someone from the audience. We have Eric Guantai, who's asked a really cool question to all of our panelists. Eric, do you want to speak out your question? We would love to hear your voice if you're able to speak.
Can I be heard? Hello?
We can hear you, Eric.
Sorry, apologies for joining a little bit late because of other commitment. I am from the field working closely with the waste pickers. Unfortunately, I'm based in Nairobi, and based on the current, what has happened or transpired in a couple of months ago, the flooding issue has been of menace to a lot of us, and in particular the waste pickers. They have been affected in multiple ways, and in this regard, well, currently, allow me to say we are running a GoFundMe fundraising for them. I've shared the account, the link with you. Going back to my question, it relates to how can Africa, now this is the question to all the panelists, how can African cities learn from each other towards building or rebuilding resilient cities anchored on sustainable waste management under the changing climate and its nexus to waste pickers in circular economy and in maintaining a clean environment, that is.
Question. Is anyone itching to go first, or could we maybe just go from order of what I see on my screen? Perhaps we start with Anderson and then we go to Aliwan and then Elizabeth, if you have an input or response to Eric's question.
Yes, thank you very much for that question, Eric. And sorry that the floods in Nairobi has really impacted the work you do with this vulnerable community. And we hope that the effort you're trying to put to rebuild their lives will come to fruition. So going up to the questions, the question that you raised, I believe one key intervention would probably be like exchange visits, because as earlier alluded by Elizabeth, there are so many technologies out there, so many solutions that are not known to so many people. And even the policymakers, some of them are not even aware of the solutions. So this exchange visits, as well as sharing information, is quite critical in order to put these solutions out there. Because most often than not, what we realize is that once some of these technologies are developed, and some of the innovators don't have the money to actually scale them up, they just lie there in the shelf. So by actually taking these solutions, taking them to the policymakers, engaging, the policymakers, the financiers, those that have both the power and the interest to scale these solutions up, and I believe that's where we can now start seeing some real impact on the ground. And because, as I made mention earlier, in terms of waste management and circular economy, there are so many solutions out there, some of which are just lying on the shelf. And there's a need actually to package that information in a very nice format that will be somehow understandable by a layman. As we all know, some of our policymakers, they are not scientists, they are not engineers. So it has to be packaged in a way that will be able to understand and then be able to make such decisions to scale them out, in their various countries and thereby across Africa.
Thank you, Anderson. Aliwan, do you have anything to add on top of what Anderson has shared?
Yeah, Jukudu, I will start also with this current event. I think it's definitely a good opportunity, the Wise Africa Festival, to share also some knowledge. And I will say that in terms of other aspects that we can consider, we can think about considering some online platform which will allow to establish perhaps an opportunity to share some best practices, a case study, on waste management initiative, and also establish some partnership also between the cities. Yeah. I think that was just some elements that I wanted to highlight in addition to what Anderson just mentioned.
Thank you, Aliwan, as well. Elizabeth, did you have anything to add to that same question as well?
Absolutely. It's a question that I have myself pondered a lot. It's personally, I am very interested in like Anderson mentioned, I am very interested. I love traveling. I love having new experiences. I love gaining new knowledge, and I love sharing this knowledge. So, but who is going to fund it is the question. So, but then sometimes maybe it's just, maybe Anderson is right in a way. It's packaging the proposal in a way that the government will be able to understand, like, okay, I want to be able to facilitate this cross-border collaboration between innovators in this country so that they can come over here and train a group of people. And then there should be some ongoing support afterwards for how best to, because I don't think there is anything like a biomass system set up anywhere in Nigeria. I doubt it very much. And it's, I think I've seen a YouTube video where a lady uses biomass to cook food in her country home in Kenya. And she's not an engineer, she's not anything, she's not a scientist, she's not anything. It's just, so it's not something that is unlearnable, I mean, by the average person, if it is being taught by somebody who is knowledgeable about the process. So there is a lot of there are a lot of solutions that are just sitting on the shelf, and we do need that cross-border collaboration to be able to, because this is a global problem. It's not geographically segmented. It's a global problem. It's an Africa-wide problem. So we should be able to come up with Africa-wide solutions to this problem. So yeah.
And on my end, just adding to this point, and more particularly what you've mentioned, Elizabeth, is the idea of not waiting for perfection in order to start. Anyone that joined our core session earlier today will have heard that from one of our speakers. That was the key point you put into the conversation, which was, why should we wait for something to be perfect in order to start? We should start. And the value of cross-border collaboration is exactly that. It helps you to see someone else doing something. It's amazing to hear that there's over 1,000 people interested in working on black soldier fly farming in Kenya alone. Can we imagine what could come out of cross-border collaboration there, having West Africa learn from how the East Africans are doing this and just going. Similarly to those of us who are here in the southern part of the continent, collaboration is very important for those reasons. Platforms such as Rise Africa, it's not necessarily, particularly our session here, is not necessarily about coming to solve the problem and find the ideas, but letting people know what you are doing so that other people can then take it on. Imagine if after this session, someone goes and starts a black soldier fly farm, or someone goes and starts a waste to energy solution, or someone does something as inspiring as what Elizabeth has done. You create a video that calls on people and tugs at their heart to do something about a challenge that they're seeing in their community. We will be wrapping up our conversation here, but before I do that,
I have a question or contribution.
Yes, but could you please go quite quickly so that we're able to wrap? Yes. Because I'd love to hear from our speakers once more. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I think we also need to come up with our own standards. We need to develop African standard. Going by what is in the market right now, we are disadvantaged in so many ways. And the kind of standards we are deploying in these African solutions are tailored for global north economies. So they are not compatible with the African dynamics. I think it is high time we look based on the solution that we have, we determine our own standard, set our own standard, and make it marketable. If we go the way things are going, we are going to be left behind because everything is grounded on standard and funding. And data on the same. We also need to have our own data, document everything that you're coming up with, and make it bankable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric. Just touching on one of something that one of our speakers said earlier around mainstreaming. That's exactly what it is. We need to mainstream our approaches, our ways of doing that are responsive to the challenges that we are experiencing on the continent. Thank you so much for that input. Before we close off, I just want to check in with our speakers. Unfortunately, Desmond is not with us anymore, but I would like to get a 30-second input or just final reflection from Anderson and then Aliwan and then Elizabeth before we close off. Over to you, Anderson.
Thank you very much, Jikudo. It's really a pleasure to be part of this session, and it has been very, very informative, exchanging ideas. This is what we really need, in Africa, to bring out some of these solutions, identify challenges that we're facing, and looking at possible solutions to overcome them. And I see in the chat, there's a proposal of the, Black Soldier Fly Committee of Practice, which I highly recommend, and other committee of practice as well, because that's also one platform that we can start, learning from each other, cross-boundary, cross-national learning, to exchange ideas not only within national boundaries, but across Africa. So it was really a pleasure, and I look forward to engaging. If there's any opportunity where we could engage in the providing science and evidence to inform policy as well as decision making on the ground, we are very much open to be engaged in that. So thank you very much. I will look forward to so many of this in the future.
Thank you so much, Anderson. We are also hopeful that there will be more opportunities to collaborate as well. Aliwan, any last thoughts or comments that you would like to share?
Just thank you again, Jokudu and Zakia, for the organization of this session, which was really interesting and always great also to share our work and also to learn from other colleagues. And as previously mentioned, I think if we can reach out to a sort of community of practice, I think it would be really something valuable and really great. So yeah, thank you again. It was really interesting for us. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Aliwan. And as said earlier, we're looking forward to hearing more about your project and how things progress. Elizabeth, your last reflections.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's really been a pleasure to share my experiences and to learn from everyone. This is a really good platform, and I look forward to collaborating more in future, of course. And like the Black Soldier Fly community, I would definitely love to be a part of that. And if there are any other solutions, like actionable solutions that anyone comes up with, or anyone in your network who comes up with like actionable solutions, I definitely would like to hear about them and just talk about them, share them with my network. And yeah, thank you. You can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Yeah, definitely. Please reach out to Elizabeth on LinkedIn so that you're also able to keep up with her posts and what she shares about her work. From my end, just thank you so much to all our speakers, from Desmond to Aliwan to Elizabeth to Anderson, for the lovely inputs that you've given. We could have this conversation for hours on end. There's a lot more to talk about that I wasn't able to capture today, but I'm hopeful that this is not the last time we'll be convening together to have these discussions. Thank you so much to the audience as well for all the inputs that you've given us as well. As earlier said, this session is recorded and will be shared back with you so that you're able to refer back to it afterwards, or even to share with your community so that people can learn from what has been discussed in this discussion. But to close off today, we would just like to thank you for attending this session and for participating in the Rise Africa 2024 Action Festival. Zakia in the chat has put in a link to a 2-minute survey that we hope you could respond to. So it will just take 2 minutes. Please click on it. Please fill in your reflections on today's session. And yeah, please make sure to join us for a debrief of the festival that will take place on Friday, the 24th of May at 3 p.m. Central African time, where we will reflect on a lot of the themes that have come up from today's discussions and some of the points that we perhaps haven't had a chance to discuss now. That might be another opportunity to deep dive into those discussions. And lastly, from a open burning perspective, there's one more link that we would like to share with you, which is being put together by a few colleagues of us who are actively working in the open burning space. It is a transformative action in waste sector survey, and this is specifically for a Africa regional roadmap that the team would be working on. And this information feeds into a baselining collection of data that they're doing. So please do take some time to fill in that survey. It closes around mid-June, so there is some time to fill it in. And yeah, thank you so much everyone for your inputs today, and wishing you all a lovely rest of your day. Bye all.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.